to our Substack live stream today. I'm Tamara Hill Murphy. I write at Restful at Substack, and I'm so glad to have Claude Atcho with me today. This is just learning this space, figuring it out. So thanks for flying with me on this adventure. My hope today, Claude, is to invite you to talk a little bit. You're an author, you're an Anglican priest in Charlottesville, Virginia. You're other things too that you're welcome to speak to, whatever you'd like us to know about you. But my hope today is to talk to you a little bit about your book, Rhythms of Faith. And I wanted to read the subtitle, make sure I have it. A devotional pilgrimage through the church year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit about Advent and how you see that fitting well for readers as we
hmm
are in Advent. And then if we have time, a little bit more about rest and what that looks like for you, like in your real life at this time of year.
Um,
So there's a lot of things we want to talk about. We're not going to hurry. This is supposed to be a restful conversation. So let's just start with me thanking you. Your book, Rhythms of Faith, has been such a great companion for my husband Brian and me through this season. We're looking forward to following it through the church year. Brian gave it to his staff. He's a priest as well, and so there's already lots of fun conversation happening. And in fact, Claude, a week or so ago, I was talking with a friend from church, and she was like, "Where did I read that thing about the slowness of God?" And then she was like,
mm,
"Oh, it's in Claude's book."
oh,
So
that's cool.
it's becoming part of our conversation. But before we talk about your book, I just want to do a couple quick notes here. For those of you joining us on live stream, welcome. We're so glad you're here. If you'd like to be able to see the replay of this, just subscribe to tamarahillmurphy.substack.com. And I'll send this out as a replay later today, maybe tomorrow, with links and notes from our conversation today. And that'll go out along with a curation of other restful finds I have for this month for paid and free subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, now's a good time to do that so you can get this replay. Toward the end of my conversation with Claude, I'm going to invite him to give me a number for a drawing, and I'm going to give away a copy of my book, The Spacious Path, which is, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's a great kind of beginning of the new year book. And then the other thing I just want to remind viewers is that the Advent and Christmas Day book at Restful is going out each day to paid subscribers at Restful. And it's just a way to walk through the scriptures that saturate Advent and Christmas. And I've been so glad, Claude, to have you, your voice as a companion there this year, along with Ashley Tumlin Wallace of the Liturgical Home and Victoria Emily Jones of the excellent Art and Theology blog. So thank you for that as well. So having kind of gotten those notes, and friends, if you're watching, feel free to comment or ask a question. I'm learning this platform. So if I catch it, I'll make sure I include it in our conversation. But let's start with your book, Claude. So,
Okay.
um, as much as you'd like to share with the time we have, how it came to be, and maybe even more so, how you imagine readers engaging with it at this time of year.
Mhm. Yeah. So the the book really emerged for me out of my experience and reflection, just kind of like having these sort of early movements through the church year. I talk about this in the introduction in terms of changing kind of church traditions and sort of thinking about what I particularly felt like I needed formationally and structurally, not just as a pastor or clergy, but just as a Christian, just sort of a need for a gracious guide to help me walk with Jesus beyond just sort of the logic of like my quiet time and like my own sort of devotional discipline. And so I have found the church year to be that type of gracious guide. And yeah, having kind of been in that stream for a little bit, I just started thinking about putting reflections together around the church year, letting the year, the church calendar, which anchors us in the story of the gospel, letting that be sort of the tracks for a devotional life. And so, yeah, I've had that. I kind of had that idea out of that experience, and I had that idea actually. I think like this time 2 years ago, and I remember just sort of being like, "Oh, I should like I should like put that structure together or think through that." And so I did, and then I kind of sat on it for several months, and then yeah, shared it around, and yeah, got some traction, and so now it's actually a book. So it's really cool to see that out there. But yeah, this really came out of my own desire to kind of process that journey for myself and wanting to share that with others, knowing there are others who are like me who I think can receive the church year as a gracious guide, and that's what I really wanted the book to be and to do, and to be like refreshing and encouraging for people, and to be invitational. So that's been my hope, and it's been encouraging to hear some of that response from people's already so far. That's been really meaningful.
Yeah, gracious guide is it's the perfect description. And when I talked with Ashley Tomlin Wallace here a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about coming into liturgical practice and liturgical rhythms at various points in our lives. And I know Brian and I joined sort of a liturgical expression when we were well into adulthood, and our kids were like well into growing up. And as much as I was drawn to the Book of Common Prayer, it was clearly a treasure.
Mm,
I I don't know that gracious guide is the phrase. Like I needed a companion, and I had my church community, best place. But the way that you help us kind of like linger at Restful, I like to talk a lot about lingering and savoring, and the way you help us do that with each week of the liturgical calendar, and the way you kind of even set up time itself.
mm,
Oh no, I wish I could remember the exact word you used, but at one point you said something about the civic calendar um, being more like a heavy lift. There's
mm.
something about the civic calendar compared to looking at time through this lens of the liturgical calendar. Do you remember that part that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think something about the civic calendar teaches us time as sort of like the time is just for productivity or to remind us of our futility. Like it kind
Yeah.
of goes to those two extremes that sort of that's all time really is. Also obviously the civic calendar has its own sort of formative
Mhm.
end goal in mind for us. And not all of that is negative, but I think because it's such a default, that's where the danger emerges. Whereas I think with the church here we get to experience time as a gift from God, as an extension of his grace towards us. Of course we know, Psalm 90 verse 12, right, teach us to number our days that we might gain a heart of wisdom. So we do recognize we are dust, and to dust we will return. We know through the hope of the gospel we will rise again. So there is something about time that does remind us of our finitude. But I think because of who God is, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, time is more than just reminding us that we have an expiration date. Right? It's actually a gift as well to be received, and I think that's where your work is so important and so helpful about. If that's what time is, then it is good to linger. It is good to savor things. Like, it is good to reflect, right?
Mhm.
We don't have to live in a rush, in a hurry, unless we're buying time as productivity. That sort of ethos, which we're invited to see beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So that brings us to a great moment to talk about Advent because of all the countercultural sort of timekeepers that we have available to us, it seems like Advent is at the top of the list, and maybe a great time for folks to start engaging with your book. What kind of invitation do you have for folks in Advent in the book?
Yeah, so I would say, there's still time is still available. You can still do it.
Yes.
Maybe you're yeah, I think maybe if you're coming to this and you're sort of like, "Oh, I missed the boat." Like, no, you haven't. Like, there's lots of room. Hop on, hop in, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think the invitation right now in regards to my book and Advent and where we are is yeah, just the sort of the waiting, the preparing. I think the honesty about um, yeah, brokenness around us, hurt and confusion that we carry. Just the sense of not rightness, I think, is the other invitation, right? Which obviously, none of us, even if things maybe are going really well for us, family wise or in our personal lives, no one has to look really far to gain awareness of that, right? That's just that is life, in its beauty and its tragedy. So I think part of the invitation from Advent, part of the invitation that I try to extend in the book, is just to kind of name that and recognize that, and that the scriptures call us to that sort of realism, and in that realism, we find we're on the way toward hope, and we're moving toward. Yeah, receiving and savoring the light of Jesus, as we celebrate at Christmas. So I think the invitation is to not rush, headlong into Christmas, but
Mhm.
actually to kind of sit and to recognize that not rightness, to sit with longing, to sit with God's promises, and to kind of soak in them. That as we move into the joy of Christmas, our hearts have been prepared to receive that
Mhm.
in full.
Yeah, it's so good. Uh, I mentioned when you and I were chatting earlier that I might bring up this question about the scripture, the prophecy in Advent, and, I think that was one of my most shocking things when I began following the daily scriptures of Advent, or even just the weekly ones. Um, there is so much there about last days. So you set this up in your book where we're noticing and observing and giving thanks for the first arrival of Christ, and we're looking forward to the second arrival of Christ, as well as noticing these in between days where Christ
Mm,
arrives again and again. But the language of the prophets for that I mean, through the whole scripture, of that second arrival. In my background, there was probably some healthy sobriety, for sure, but
mm,
more so sort of like a fear, not something at all that I would wanna connect with Christmas and celebration and the idea of Jesus as, something so accessible as this beautiful baby. And this week in Advent, for example, you tease out the theme of the judge at the door, and as I've been leaning into that, leaning into the encouragement that you're giving, leaning into the scriptures, I've been holding this question like, how is Jesus as judge a good news? And in language I like to use, like, how is that restful for me in any way at all? I don't know if there's anything you can speak to that here. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
yeah, for sure. I think that's such an important question. So I think, I believe I talked about this in a devotional from James 5 for Advent, the judge
Mhm.
at the door that you referenced. That passage is interesting because uh, the Lord's judgment in that passage works in two ways. There's this sort of uh, injustice and oppression that's happening within the church. People are being with their wages are being withheld. They're really being crushed underfoot. And James gives the encouragement, that the Lord is going to judge, and he takes it in two directions. And so the Lord as judge is like comfort to those who are being crushed underfoot, and it's a call of repentance and warning to those who are doing the crushing. And so it's the same reality, but it's received in two different ways based on the sort of posture of the heart and the way that people are what they're orienting their lives upon and around. And so I think that that's really important to recognize. And so for those who are being crushed underfoot in James 5, the news that the Lord is near, the Lord is coming, the Lord will judge, that is relief and rest for them. He's the only one who's going to be able to set right the things that
Mhm.
are crushing them. I'm also reminded as well of one of the other passages, maybe for the week before. I can't remember. We also had it recently through the Sunday readings this month was Isaiah 11, which
Mhm.
is the passage of um, the wolf and the lamb, and a little child will lead them. And the spirit of the Lord is the root from the stump of Jesse, and the spirit
Mhm.
of the Lord will be upon him, and he'll judge. He won't judge by hearsay, but he'll do justly. And it's kind of like, there's this. The way I've thought about that passage most recently is that Isaiah is foretelling that there's a leader coming who can lead us into the future that we all want, right?
Yeah.
People talk about like, why can't we all just get along, you know? And at some level, that's kind of simplistic, but at a deeper level, that is actually what we want. We want this harmony. We want this shalom. We have this sense that we should be able to overcome all of these divisions among us. The greatest division being that of death, which separates us from the life that we're made to have. And so Isaiah 11, I think, shows there is a leader coming who can bring us into that future. And in bringing us into that future, he's going to judge all that we have done to destroy that future. But
Mhm.
in that act of judgment, he actually is going to recreate everything. Um, and then the other thing about judgment that I think is restful is the fact I think individually we're all looking for verdicts. Like I'm always sort of like, I want to know I'm doing okay. I want to know that I'm accepted. I want to know that, what I do matters, right? So really I am looking for somebody to kind of stamp something, over me. Um, um, and to do so in a way that like actually realizes who I am and yet somehow mysteriously will say, yes, and I still receive you. So I am looking for that verdict. I'm looking for that gospel verdict. So I think God's judgment is restful as we recognize those things, and as we recognize the one who judges us is going to be the one who was judged in our place. I think that's the other fundamental piece. So I don't know. So those are the like I guess three things that I would offer there in regards to how the second coming can be restful. I think it's sobering, but it's also meant to leave us with a sense of relief, but also as Jesus says, for us to stay awake. To there's a readiness
Mhm.
required.
Yes, and that's such a paradox, right?
It is, yeah.
We're thinking of restfulness in terms of, like, a
Yes.
good nap. That's not quite the same, but that sense of shalom, that, well, all things being made right. And you talked too about the patience of God and how the slowness of God, and how there's a tension there, as we long for Christ to make all things right. There's a slowness that you connect with love. The love of
Yeah.
God is also meaning that this judge is patient and waiting for all. So anyway, there's so much rich there, and so much good. Uh, I want to make sure that I get some time to talk to you about literature because
Yeah.
you have another book, Reading Black Books. And I don't know if this is, anyway, this I would definitely recommend this. Our church was able to read this together a couple years ago. And anyway, that's a tie-in to some recommendations you have for Advent and Christmas,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
that maybe are unexpected ones for folks to think about this time of year.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this recently, sort of like novels for the church here, and so I had a few recommendations, and I did, I think the smart move, which was to like crowdsource from other readers, and so I compiled a whole sort of syllabus almost that you could kind
Yeah.
of pair novels thematically with the church here. That's on my Substack, and I got a bunch of stuff from you as well, which was helpful. Yeah, so for Advent, my suggestion was Toni Morrison's Beloved. I think it's a difficult read because of its honesty about history, the experience of African Americans through chattel slavery, but also sort of the legacy there. It does a lot with time. It does a lot with sort of inbreaking, the sort of recognizing the spiritual world, and I think very fitting with Advent. There is sort of this surprise invasion of redemption in this sort of way that feels like, how could this happen? But as it happens, you're like, yeah, this is right, so I think it has that sort of surprise that I feel like, especially like Isaiah speaking of the righteousness of God, the sort of inbreaking action to save at the darkest moment. So I think that novel in so many ways feels like a really appropriate read for Advent. So I would suggest that for folks. Um, there were a few others on Advent. I can't remember what else I put it. Did you have do you have an Advent pick novel wise?
Well, I mean, and I'm trying to remember your list too. I do know that, a couple of years ago when we were brand new at Apostles, and I wanted to at our church, and I wanted to start this reading group based on the liturgical calendar where we would
Mhm.
read good literature that would have like adjacent themes. And so here I am brand new to this place. They don't know me. I don't know them. and the very first pick I pick is Shusako Endo's Silence
Yeah.
because I wanted to read it and also silence. And I was thinking, let all mortal flesh keep silent. Like I just knew there was
Yes.
something there. I mean, that was sort of it became sort of a litmus test for our reading group for folks who were coming in expecting something else. But I still would keep that book in there for Advent.
Oh, totally. I think silence works for Advent. I think it works for Lent. I think
Yes.
those seasons there's some similarity, I think, in terms of the preparatory nature of those seasons. Yeah, we read Silence as one of our reading summer reading groups at our church. And if folks aren't familiar, it's sort of a historical reconstruction of missionaries that go to Japan. I think in like the 15th century, 50 or maybe 16th century, something like that. And there's news that there are rumors that their mentor in the faith has apostatized under harsh persecution. They come with a lot of arrogance, and they sort of yeah, they have a harrowing experience, but I think also one where they encounter God in a way that they would have never expected. But I think for folks, it's important to know people have very strong and differing reactions to the end of the novel, which I think is
Mhm.
obviously intention by the author. But
Yeah.
I think it's a great pick for Advent. I love that book. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. So we got some good reading suggestions, but I'll link to your Substack because and I have a bookshop Advent shelf. I'll put both of those links in the newsletter when I send out this recording. Okay, so having said that, Claude, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing great. Um, I asked sort of for a bonus question before we do our drawing for
Yeah.
the spacious path. A moment, a moment of rest, maybe recently, if you want to tie it into sort of like, how do you find rest at this time of year? You, dad of how many kids do you have?
I have three.
3 kids.
Mhm.
You're a pastor, you're an author, you just had a book really like, if you wanna tie it into, like, how in the world did you find a moment of rest right now?
Mm.
Awesome. Could be this year, or maybe you just have, like, a pick, something from the past year that you associate with a restful, could be a movie, some music, a gadget, a hobby. What comes up
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, I could think of a couple things. I'll give them quickly. So one thing that I found very restful this past year has actually been drawing. Um,
Ah.
I'm not good at this. Is I think why it's restful. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at drawing.
Wait, say more why that makes it restful.
It's just there's no. I think it's true leisure in the sense of like I'm not doing it to turn it into anything. It's
Mhm.
just a thing that I do, and the act of doing it is its reward. That's what it is. So I'll draw with my son, or I'll just sort of be like, yeah, let me hop on YouTube and like learn how to draw faces a little bit, or like try to learn how to draw faces. And I think there's sort of a yeah, it's not co-opted into something productive. It's not co-opted into this like result. It's just me in a process doing something and enjoying being creative and yeah, and just playing. There's I think it's playful. So that's been great. So I'd recommend that, for people maybe to think about. Um
Right.
Playing catch with my kids, throwing a baseball back and forth, I found very, very restful. Have even started doing that with other neighborhood kids from our church. We'll meet at the park and we'll like put together our own baseball game, and that's been really fun. So again, I think maybe a thread of play. So maybe
Yeah.
what I'm saying is if people can find things that for them they find, yeah, this is like playful. Like I'm
Mhm.
just like enjoying this for I'm in the moment. That's all it is. The fullness of that moment that I found good and found meaningful. In terms of Advent specifically, we have a woman at our church who's really gifted in leading Lectio Divina, a kind of reflective reading of Scripture. So we had a small group that did that together. We read the Isaiah 11 passage that I was referencing earlier, and she just guided us through reading it slowly. And we did that for like maybe 30 minutes. And that was really restful. And I think just slowing down with passages of scripture that speak with a sort of depth to Advent themes, that's been a gift for me, a way to rest in the midst of, you know, all the events that we all have going on. So those have been, yeah, gifts of rest, I think, this year, but also this season.
Beautiful. Yeah. I have several. resources in mind that I'll link to in the newsletter, that if folks want to follow up on Lexio, or like I have one of my spiritual direction colleagues, Amy Willers, she's also our children's ministry director. Her whole emphasis for folks is contemplative play, and
Mm.
drawing is a big part of that, coloring as well.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Yeah,
Yeah. Just
love
that
to see that.
movement with our hands is so good. I could talk more about that, but I'll put a link. I just wanted to check, see if there's any questions. Thanks to everyone who's joining us. I see your name. We're so glad you're here. If you have a question or a comment, you have another minute or two to leave it for us, and I'll make sure we cover that. But now, Claude, uh, we're going to do this. It might be very anticlimactic because I'm not sure I'll be able to actually pull up the exact name, but I'm going to get the number from you. I'm going to
Okay.
try to get the name. And if not, I'll just announce it in the newsletter. But
Okay.
favorite number, 1 to 160.
I'm gonna go 41.
Where do you want? Is there a reason for that?
It's my oldest son's basketball number for his league team, right?
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
when I go 41.
I wondered if there would be a sports related reference. Let's see if I can
Yeah.
do this quickly. Um, let's see. 41 is, nope, I can't pull it up, but I will announce it in the
Okay.
newsletter.
I'll
Someone
pick a
will
new
be
number.
very happy. And I will send a signed copy of my book, The Spacious Path, to this person, number 41.
41.
Um,
Lucky.
yeah, yes, exactly. And last time I was on, Ashley drew a number and we gave away a copy of your book.
Oh, cool.
So we've done that the last couple months, and that's been fun too. So, yeah, the last thing I just want to say is the Advent and Christmas Day book at Restful, where Claude and Victoria Emily Jones and Ashley Tumlin Wallace have been offering their voice, that arrives daily for paid subscribers at my Substack. And just in terms of restfulness and kind of, if you haven't joined Advent yet, this week is a really beautiful time. One of the things that the historic church did in their daily prayer, is they began the O antiphon prayers, which we recognize as the 7 verses of O Come, Emmanuel. And so each day we linger with one of those verses and really, again, take another pass at the prophetic language. There, the invitations that we are making: O come, wisdom, O come, day spring, O come, King of the nations. And so, if you haven't joined Advent Day book yet, this is a great time to do that. This is a great week leading up to Christmas to really savor. I think it also gives us that container for all that we know is not well within our own lives, within the world. It gives us a prayerful place to hold those things. And certainly, as we continue, Claude, to share reflections from your book throughout the next couple of weeks, I think I'm just grateful for the ways that you're helping form our imagination
Mm,
for the goodness of the arrival
mm.
of Christ in every way. So, anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Um, I don't think so. Yeah, it's been great to be a part of the day book, and yeah, I think it's such a gift to have that, and to have something that really is restful and reflective. It's just a different speed. So that's been
Mhm.
an encouragement to me, and I know obviously is a blessing to many others.
Yeah. Well, look forward to sort of feel like in conversation with you there. But thanks for this, like, real time,
For sure. Yeah.
virtual but face to face place. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining us. And yeah, God bless you, Claude. God bless your family, your community, and those of you who are watching this now. Those of you who will be watching it later, we just pray that you'll sense the nearness
Mm,
of Christ, who is a good and near judge, who
mm.
will make all things right. So, all right, have a great day.
Thanks for you too. Yep.
Yeah, bye
Blessings.
bye.
Bye.